Okay, this is Module 6 for computerized accounting. This is using QuickBooks Online. Module 6 deals with accounts receivable. Now we're going to be creating invoices, receiving payments from customers or clients, depositing those funds, creating the deposits, and then generating some reports. I want to begin with the difference between an invoice and a receipt. In Module 6, we'll be creating invoices. Invoices are for when a product has been sold or a service has been given, but the payment is not received until a later date. So you would create an invoice. A sales receipt would be generated when payment is exchanged at the point of sale or at the time of service. So if it, for example, when you make a purchase at a retail store such as Walmart, you receive a sales receipt because you're giving them payment at that time. Even if you're paying with a credit card and not a debit card, it's still considered a sales receipt because Walmart treats that as a cash sale. All right, so let's begin with, this starts on page 43, but the first instructions that we're going to be following are on page 45. We're going to be adding a new invoice. Okay, so I'm on the home dashboard. I'm going to come here in the menu and click on this new, and under customers, invoice is the first option. So it's going to open up to a blank invoice. Now, when you open this, if it opens up to a screen that tries to get you to set up something, just exit out of that and the invoice should be available for you. Okay, so our customer here is Indie Publishing. So we're going to select Indie Publishing, and then the name and the date, the address defaults. The terms are net 30, that's the default terms. The invoice, actually I have already created this invoice, so let me exit this and I'll just open up the invoice. I'm sorry, I had already created this invoice. Okay, so I'm going to go to, you would do that step, but I'm going to go to sales and I'll just click on invoices, and I'll just select this one, and you can see on, we put the name in, the invoice number, change the date to January 15th. Make sure that when you enter the product or service, we created those products and services and tied them to the revenue account. So that is going to generate the revenue. And then you're going to have to enter the date. So it's one quantity. I'm sorry, you're going to have to enter the rate. So you'll have to manually enter the rate for that. And the same thing for the programming and coding. So the total invoice is $30,000. So I'm going to save this. Okay, now I'm going to close the invoice. And because in the initial setup, it didn't tell us to add an account for a specific account, I'm going to go back to the chart of accounts, and this account is there. It is the payments to deposit account, and I'm going to edit this account. I'm going to click on this and register. Let's go back. Okay, go back to the chart of accounts. and I want to edit payments to deposit. The only thing I want to do here is I want to click on this arrow, click edit, and the only thing you want to do is you want to add the account number, and it tells us to use in future instructions. It's going to say to use the 12,000 All right, the detail type is undeposited funds. So when we receive the payments, we want it to go into this payments to deposit, and then we will actually generate a deposit. So we'll have a record of the deposits. All right, so payments to deposit is what we want this to be listed as. All right, save that. Okay, so now moving on to page 46. We want to add another invoice, 1002. Okay, so we're not actually receiving the payment for 1001. So I'm going to go back to new, click on invoice, and this time we're going to enter an invoice for AFK game developers. So make sure you select the correct company. Returns are net 30. The invoice number is 1002. The invoice date for this one, it says due on this February 15th. Alright, when I enter the product and the services, I'm going to, now this is just, you don't have to do it this way, but I'm just going to assume that the date, alright, we're going to start with design and graphics. Is quantity 1, and the amount is 10. Okay, so we have another service, programming and coding, that was provided, and it was 1 unit quantity, and again it's 10,000 is what they're charging this client. So the total of this invoice is $20,000. So let me make sure we've got everything. We've got to change the date. That's there. Okay, so save. All right, so the invoice is saved. I'm going to close, because the next thing we're going to do on page 47 is we're going to show receiving payment for this invoice. Okay, so I'm going to go back to client sales transactions. Well, actually, I'm just going to click up here on new, and underneath invoice you have received payment. Now we're receiving payment, so choose the client that you're receiving payment for, and it says to receive payment for invoice 1002, which is AFK developer. So when you select the client, it shows you what the open invoice, the unpaid invoice, and that's the one. So we'll put the check mark. Now it shows that we're being paid on the date that they said to use, January 13th, but that was before this service. So I'm just changing the date here to 2/29. So use a date that's after the service was provided. Okay, the method of payment, it's a check. All this information is on page 47, and then a reference number given. So they use a reference number 98076533. Notice that you don't want to deposit this. It says to deposit it to that payments to deposit. So make sure that you don't deposit it directly to the checking account, because that's, you're going to use another step for to show and for detail on the actual deposits. So we want to use this payments to deposit, or some software, some accounting software calls it undeposited funds. Alright, so this is the amount. I think we've entered all of our information and we're ready to save and close. Alright, so we've recorded the receipt of the payment. Those were the steps on page 47 where we received the payment. Now the last step on page 47 says to record deposits. So all deposits are posted to the checking account that ends in 1234. So now we're ready to record the deposit. So we can come up here to new, under other, select bank deposit. Should only be one amount because that's the only thing that we've received. Okay, so you can see the receipt from AFK Game Developers. It was a check. The amount is $20,000. If you wanted to record anything in the memo, the reference that we just listed is there. All right, so now make sure that we select the checking account that ends in 1234. So you want to deposit this undeposited, or payments to deposit. You want to deposit that to the checking account. Now don't get confused. This balance is showing the current balance in the checking account in the 1234 account, not the amount of this invoice. Okay, so that is all we need to do here. If you needed to add any funds to this deposit, maybe you received something that day and you wanted to add it, but we don't. We're finished with this, so we're going to save, and we're going to do save and close instead of save and new. Okay, now we're almost done with this video. I'm going to go back to the chart of accounts, and I want you to look and see, now that we received this payment, you can see the checking account has increased. If you view the register, you would see this deposit, $20,000, so it has increased. Go back to the chart of accounts. Now also want you to look at the accounts receivable. Notice that the accounts receivable has increased. So we recorded two, remember we reported that invoice, the first invoice was for $30,000, then we recorded the second invoice was for $20,000. We received the payment for the $20,000, so that's no longer represented in the accounts receivable. But that first invoice, that unpaid invoice of $30,000, you can see that the balance is listed here in the accounts receivable. All right, so I'm going to end this video, and we'll have another video where we'll record some more invoices and payments.